Today on Up Front, the big political stories of the year behind and the year ahead. Will Governor Walker run for president? What's on the Republican legislative agenda? And who will be the rising stars of 2015? We'll break it all down with our political roundtable. John Nichols of the Progressive Capital Times in Madison, and Christian Schneider, conservative columnist for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel.
Covering the issues important to Wisconsin. This is Up Front with Mike Goucher.
Hello again, everyone, and welcome to Up Front. This is our final program of 2014, and what a year it's been. Governor Walker won his third election in 4 years. Republicans have even stronger majorities in the Assembly and Senate, and the Democratic Party is looking for a way forward. We're talking about all of this today and looking ahead to events in 2015 with our political pundits. Christian Schneider, columnist for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, and John Nichols, associate editor of the Cap Times and a correspondent for The Nation. Thanks to both of you for being with us today.
Sure.
So is it all about Scott Walker in 2014? Was that the story of the year, Christian?
It was certainly the story of the year. What fascinates me about the year is that here we are in 2014, and we are right back to where we were in 2010. So with everything that's changed, everything is now still the same.
How so?
Well, I mean, Scott Walker's won for the third time in 4 years, as you said. The legislature is back in Republican hands solidly. And so through all the protests and all the tumult we've seen over the past 4 years, it essentially amounted to where we are right now. And what was interesting for me is that during the campaign, you know, nerds like us sit around and we talk about
Speak for yourself.
the effects of the campaign, or do this and that, and like we watch the debates, and oh well, did Scott Walker say the right thing here or there? But this cake might have been baked 2 years ago. I mean, right after the recall, nothing really much changed. I mean, you saw the polls go up and down, but in the end, the campaign really might not have mattered that much, and that's bad news for us that write about campaigns, but it might have been the case.
John?
Totally disagree. I actually think we learned a lot.
That's good. For the sake of this show, that's a really good thing.
Now I have to figure out what I disagree about. No, I think that everything that Christian said is true. I mean, there's no doubt of that. But I actually think it was a very instructive year, because we had a year in which a national wave was going Republican. There's no doubt of that. That was highly beneficial to Scott Walker. And he's faced the voters for the third time. Yet he only could get 52% of the vote, exactly the same thing he got the first time, and a little less than he got the second time. And here's, to use a different trajectory, let's look at Tommy Thompson. 52% the first time, I think 59% the second time, and then 67% the third time. Scott Walker has not expanded his appeal 1 millimeter. Now, he held the office in an off-year election, no doubt about that. But I think we actually come away from this with a good deal of information. Number one, Wisconsin has changed. Wisconsin is a state where the divide runs much deeper, no doubt about that. And in an off-year election, non-presidential, a Republican probably has a bit of an advantage, just as a Democrat does in an on-year presidential. That's number one. Number two, though, I think this year revealed Scott Walker's great challenge. He is unable to reach anybody who hasn't been with him. He cannot expand his appeal. And in fact, as I think in some ways he benefits from all the churn, all the Sturm and Drang. As people settle in now and take a look at what this guy has accomplished, what he proposes to accomplish, it doesn't dazzle folks.
Let's talk about his presidential prospects. How does he stack up, Christian, against guys like Jeb Bush, against even a John Kasich? I mean, there are other people who have some of the similar credentials of Scott Walker, but a different set of experiences. How does he fit into this picture?
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly in the mix. I mean, you look at the polls, and he's probably within the top 5 or so. You know, he checks all of the boxes. He's not great at one particular thing, but, you know, he didn't take the Obama Medicare money. You know, he says he's against Common Core. He's cut taxes, and then he has that one big thing, which is the fight with the unions. So he's definitely in that mix there. And then, you know, he's even behind some people who are never going to be president, like Rand Paul, for instance. So, you know, those on the left here in Wisconsin can't believe that Scott Walker is actually in the discussion for president. But when you look at the Republican primary, I mean, he's right there with everybody else.
Briefly, John, his conservative credentials seem to be without question. That works in a primary to some extent?
A little. He's right there with Bobby Jindal holding up the end of the list. Literally, when you look at the numbers, it's startling how low he is. We in Wisconsin are quite obsessed with Scott Walker. We've known him a long time. We've seen him in a lot of settings. The rest of the country has no idea who this guy is, and not a lot of interest. There's some people in D.C. that like him because he is very, very deferent to national conservative talking points and national conservative money. I mean, that's just reality. And so he's very appealing to people who want a cookie-cutter character to fit in. But the truth of the matter is that I think that Scott Walker's prospects as a 2016 presidential candidate got a little bit rougher after the election as other candidates started to really step up.
Does Bush's entry or apparent entry into this have an effect on the governor? Because Scott Walker said afterwards that, no, this doesn't affect my thinking whatsoever. Is that true?
No, I don't think Bush getting in the race makes any difference. I mean, right after the election, you saw all the national media talking about, well, is Scott Walker going to decide to run for president? It's like, where have you people been? He's
been running for a year.
Running.
Yeah.
He's running for president. It's just, making an official announcement is kind of the end of the process, not the beginning. So he's in. It's just a matter of how long.
Let me shift gears a little bit and ask what Democrats learned from this past year, because as you point out, John, it was a tough year in the local elections. I mean, Democrats did not fare well in statewide offices. Did they learn anything?
We'll see. They had a rotten year, without a doubt, and it's very hard to even begin to point to some sort of positive sign, except that I believe Mark Pocan, the congressman from South Central Wisconsin, got the highest vote for any Democratic candidate in the country for Congress. So maybe you have one star amongst the bunch, but look, it was a mess, and it was
Is the message wrong? What's the problem?
Yes. Yeah, the message was wrong. It was not necessarily the fault of any particular candidate or even the party as a whole, but it was a message they couldn't break from, which is that, let's get rid of Scott Walker. And the message has to be about something affirmative. It's got to go that next step. It's very hard to do that after everything we've been through. I think if there's a ray of hope, I think you find it in the rise of some impressive younger leaders in the legislature. Jen Schilling, I think, is going to be a very effective state Senate Democratic leader. You have Katrina Shanklin coming up from Stevens Point in the Assembly. Some other people stepping up. So I do think they've got a pretty good bench, and they seem to be moving forward. But I do not, at this point, see that the Democratic Party has really kind of gone to think about where its challenges are. And I've said on this show before many times, its core challenge is they are not coherent enough as a statewide party. They have some great islands of strength in some urban areas, but those numbers that they got out of rural Wisconsin and small city Wisconsin, way too low.
Not good. Should Republicans read this as a full-throated endorsement of their policies, or is it about redistricting, different legislative maps? I get kind of Robin Vos said he didn't see it as a mandate on this program, but they're still reading it as the people are behind us. Is that an accurate read?
Yeah, I don't think redistricting had much to do with it at all. I mean, it was just a statewide whitewash. But, I do think Republicans can move forward with their agenda. You saw the editorials after the election that said, well, the Republicans have all this power now. Are they going to reach out to Democrats? It's like, well, maybe that should be one of the lessons. Maybe the Democrats should be doing a little reaching out to the Republicans and sign on to some of their, some of the stuff that they're working on.
That'd be a good idea. Because then there would be absolutely no reason at all to vote Democratic, right?
How many more elections does Scott Walker have to win before you guys kind of pick up on the idea?
Like I said, his appeal level right now is the same as Tommy Thompson and Tommy Thompson's first election. But Tommy Thompson, a popular governor, eventually got much higher numbers. Scott Walker still, if Scott Walker wants to work with folks, maybe he ought to have an appeal that gets beyond the baseline that he started with.
I'm glad you found a silver lining in all of this.
We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, what's ahead in 2015? A Supreme Court race, right to work battle perhaps, and will Russ Feingold re-enter politics? That's when Up Front continues.
Up Front with Mike Goucher, brought to you by the American Transmission Company and the Wisconsin Corn Growers Association.